Disruption. It means a lot more than a toddler on a crowded plane or a blaring alarm clock that yanks you out of the best dream of your life. It's a turbulent event that shakes things up whether the world or you are ready or not. Oxford Dictionary describes it as problems that interpret an event, activity, or process. But it's not always a problem. Sometimes, in the case of business, it's an extremely profitable punch to the face of a sleeping industry. Entrepreneurs and think tanks love to toss the word around like a chopped salad. But what does it really mean? Is it just another buzzword to hawk seminars and workshops? A rare wine only the elusive unicorns of an industry get to taste? Or is it a powerful force more important than innovation itself? Let's take a glance at some numbers. And bear with me, because these are pretty bleak. Startup death is morbidly common. According to CB Insights, 70% of upstart tech companies fail, usually around 20 months after their first round of financing. A nauseating 97% of seed-funded or crowd-funded companies end up drowning in the sea of opportunity and become waterlogged zombies. Wow, that was depressing. So let's pop over to the more optimistic side of things. So how do we do it? How do we become the Uber to the transportation field, the Tinder to the dating world, or the Netflix to the entertainment industry? How do we find that drowsy section of the competitive landscape that needs a piping hot cup of caffeinated innovation? Well, that's the question we're glancing at this week. I had the chance to speak with industry powerhouses like Gerard Adams, Billy Whitehouse, and Bonin Bao at the Synergy Global Forum about how disruption can be sustained and which industries are craving a shake-up, and gained some inspiration from a discussion with Fownders, a community of disruption-hungry trailblazers learning from and growing with the brightest minds in entrepreneurship. So, let's get ready to go live. I'm your host, Lucy Norris, and this is At a Glance, spotlighting people, places, and things doing well and doing good. Joining me today to talk about this week's topic, disruption, is Bobby Jones, one of the nation's most respected experts in marketing to millennial consumers. He is Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of Peace First and the co-author of the new book, Good is the New Call, Market Like You Give a Damn. He's here today to talk about the importance of connecting to Gen Z, how to market to their needs, and the impact that can take place if we think beyond the millennial generation. Bobby is the expert on helping brands understand how truly diverse, dynamic, and powerful young people are as both citizens and consumers. And today, he's going to help us do the same. So Bobby, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Now, Bobby, you have been described as basically the heartbeat of disruption when it comes to marketing, because you're able to appeal to the target audience that every business wants to gain the attention of, and that is the millennial and the younger counterpart, Gen Z. So let's go straight to your book. Your book is called Good is the New Call. It deals with transformation within the marketing ways. So what is unique about the times that we're currently living in today?
Well, I think there's three key shifts that are happening right now that I think are reshaping the landscape in really profound ways. I think one is, you spoke about earlier, Gen Z, and the millennial generation in large part, but I think this Gen Z generation is really shifting things in a profound way, mainly because of how conscious they are, one, about the issues that are happening in the world, the desire to create change in the world, and the accountability that they're creating for brands to actually be a part in playing a positive role in changing the world for the better. And so when you look at the way that Gen Z is looking at brands, they are demanding that brands take a stand. They're demanding that brands speak out on issues that really matter to them. They're looking at the way brands create their products, market their products, the imagery and all of those things, and they're making sure that brands create and market their products in a way that appeals to their values as citizens, as well as to their interests and tastes as consumers. I think the second is that if you look at this broader shift in terms of the way the technology is disrupting advertising. I mean, we have close to 300 million downloads of ad blocking software on phones. I mean, people do not have to see advertisements they don't want to see anymore. And so what it's doing is creating a shift in the marketing landscape, where brands who want to reach us as individuals, as citizens, as consumers, have to find ways of making their stories relevant to us in ways beyond advertising. And that's pushing the landscape to create better products, better stories, better messages, better experiences that really make themselves remarkable in our lives, so that we're talking about them in ways in which the word of mouth is really driving more of the awareness and adoption than advertising can.
Right.
And so I think in the third shift that we're seeing, which is really kind of a driver and kind of inspiration for the book, is this crisis in meaningfulness that we're seeing in marketing and advertising. You know, if you go back to the early days of advertising in that Mad Men era, it was kind of like this idea that advertising was this sexy, cool industry, and everybody just, you know, loved and enjoyed it and all these other things. But I think where we're at right now is that, you know, the industry is really struggling, I think, to find this way, to find this purpose, to find what is this role in this society right now, with all the issues that are happening, with the way that people are conscious about what's happening in the world. Right. What role is advertising and brands and marketers going to play in it? And can marketers be part of the solution versus just trying to just create more reasons for people to buy stuff that increasingly they question whether or not they need in the first place.
And you did mention that there are so many challenges now when it comes to getting the message across. So how do we get people to engage with information that really is in their best interest?
I think you have to make it interesting, and you have to make it relevant. You know, and our work at Peace First, our work is completely focused and dedicated to young people between ages of 13 to 24. And all of our messaging and everything that we create appeals to their passions, the issues that they care about, their desire to change the world, and the power that they see in themselves and each other to create that change.
Well, we want you to be part of this conversation, and you can be. All you need to do is follow us at AAG Live, because we put that question out there. We asked you, which brand do you think is going along that sort of mission-driven purpose, making profit and doing it well? And we actually gave you some options. I'm going to read those options. You have the options of Lyft, Citibank, Zappos, or Starbucks. So which brand do you think is doing it well and doing it good? And you can vote on there. Before we throw it to our next segment, I do want to talk about some numbers within the Gen Z area, because these are kind of shocking to me. 1.8 billion young people between the ages of 10 to 24 represent the largest youth population ever. And here in the US, that is 69 million. And they'll account for 40% of the consumers. So what areas of disruption do you think that we'll see excel over the next 5 years?
You know, I think there's a lot of conversation in terms of the way technology is going to disrupt. I mean, we know VR, we know a lot of advancements in the way that people use mobile technology and so forth. I think the biggest disruption is going to be in the way that young people are demanding and need to be involved in the actual creation of campaigns, the actual creation of products, and being a stakeholder in the messaging and experiences that are being created. I think if you look over the next 5 years, I think young people are very clear that they want a seat at the table, and they want a seat that gives them a voice and gives them a sense of power over what their experience is. And I think young people want tools and experiences that they can play with and recreate and reimagine. And so, you know, in our work, you know, the work that I do every day, not just, you know, as a marketer, but even as a citizen and work at Peace First, you know, we don't just want to observe disruption, we want to be the disruption. And for us, the work is, how do we give young people the tools and the power to create the change that they want to create in the world?
Well, we took a glance at an event promising to give us all of this insight when it comes to disruption, and that was the Synergy Global Forum. So we spoke to leading disruptors. We asked them what disruption meant to them. So take a glance and follow us to Madison Square Garden to the Synergy Global Summit. So we're backstage. We've just finished listening to the session, The Nuts and Bolts of Building a $1 Million Business. And now we're about to speak to the panelists and find out all about how disruption has impacted their industry. Why this event in particular is so important for change and for impact.
Well, what I really like is, you know, there's really a focus on how do you continue to drive disruption, entrepreneurship, and transformation. And I think that at the end of the day, as we continue to look at how we're going to reboot the economy and ultimately transform society, it's really about how we're going to create growth and opportunity.
Disruption is like this big word that like we often think like you need to create this like revolutionary technology, you know, and we have to go and put people on Mars, and I think that's really cool. Shout out to Elon Musk. But I think like disruption doesn't always happen at that level. It also happens on the bottom level.
What advice do you have for other women founders out there, not just in tech, but women entrepreneurs who want to build a business? They have a fantastic idea, and all they need is that funding, and we're hit with the same challenges. How can we make a difference? How can we make a change? And how can we change these statistics?
And so my advice would be bootstrap for as long as you can. So figure out ways to create revenue models where you're either working with other businesses or you've figured out how to sell the product without having to spend too much money on it, so upfront, and give away less equity.
At the Synergy Global Forum, we saw a ton of innovators really address global issues with solutions that are making a difference and shaping our world into a better place. Bobby, I want to ask you, when did social good become the new cool, and what will this evolve to next?
You know, I think as most cultural shifts, they're years building. And I think if there are a bunch of different, things that were happening decades ago that I think kind of led to it. There are three kind of moments that I think particularly stand out. I think one was that initial Project Red campaign. When it first came out, I think it was one of the first times that people saw pop culture really being at the forefront of a nonprofit's initiatives, and combining the cool aspect with the commerce aspect in a way that actually solved a problem in the world that people could buy into. And I think that trifecta, I think it was really revolutionary at that time in terms of the way that the cool aspect of culture and the way that a world problem that people really cared about, which is AIDS, and the fact that people can buy into it and brands can be a part of it, I think that really brought brands into this conversation, to this space in a really interesting way, because they had to be cool when they showed up. If you look at kind of two other kind of cultural points, one of which we're living in now, but I think the second one I'll call out is the 2008 election. I think that moment was a point where there was a lot of people that really started to see the possibilities of what the country could be, of what the world can be in a very optimistic way. It brought a lot of people into activism. It brought a lot of people into community service. It brought a lot of people into just a sense of consciousness. And it was really kind of an awakening, I think, for a lot of people in terms of their connection to society, connections to issues, but doing so in a way that was very optimistic in terms of that these projects and issues could be solved. And I think brands started to see the shift and started to play a different role in it. You know, you see Warby Parker and others that came shortly after that period. And I think this third milestone is, I think, the 2016 election. I think, you know, the way that the election played out, not just the anger and the hatred and the bigotry and all of the negativity that came up, but I think that there was this, after the election, I think those who really believe that the world can be good and it can be just and it can be a place that is inclusive for all, I think began to move with a greater sense of urgency, a greater sense of creativity, a greater sense of conviction, and a greater sense of accountability. And I think what we're experiencing now is the way that shift is really pulling brands into it in a way that is becoming no longer an option.
And I really do believe that, and you said this, that there is an awakening. And I would be very interested to see how last year's election has affected, you know, Gen Z and what it is that we're going to be seeing. Now, I know as a researcher, you've spent many years traveling around the world and the country, really identifying the values of what it is that moves Gen Z, why their identities are shaped the way, why they're making certain buying decisions. What differences are you seeing between millennials and Gen Z, and what can we expect to see over the next few years?
I think Gen Z is they're looking at brands, they're holding brands accountable in ways that I think are much stronger and more pronounced than the millennial generation. I think these young people, they are looking at brands in terms of the way that they show up in their lives. They're assessing brands in terms of these type of places that I want to work, what type of role are they playing in actually creating these solutions. And I think that they are also viewing themselves as really powerful influencers in terms of shaping the way the brands show up in the world.
Yeah.
I think this is a generation that really wants to be viewed as citizens. They don't just want to be viewed as consumers. They want to be viewed as citizens first, and they want to be spoken to as citizens.
And it's not just about consumers. When we've been looking at disruption, we've been looking at entrepreneurs, and we've been looking at the next wave of entrepreneurs. So when we glance at the education system, I believe that what we currently have is not really serving the mind of a disruptor or of an entrepreneur, because generally it's about conforming to concepts or rules. What innovative learning platforms are catching your attention when it comes to really satisfying the mind of the next generation of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to share that we created it. I mean, I think, we've, for 25 years, Peace First has been essentially an organization that's been in the business of helping young people become peacemakers, create compassionate solutions to injustices in the world. And a lot of that was historically in schools. But now we've taken that curriculum and actually made that accessible to young people directly at peacefirst.org. So any young person at any time, if they are seeing any injustice, whether it's in a school, in their local community, they can go into peacefirst.org, they can connect with other young people who are also passionate about these issues, and then get access to tool and educational resources and mentors that will help them find and create solutions to these and execute them. And so for us, we see the biggest disruption from an education standpoint is involving young people in the creative process of designing educational tools. And so even in the work that we were doing, young people helped design the layout, they designed the curriculum, they designed the way that the mentors and other young people can interact. They helped design the process and the journey that young people went on, the branding, the look and feel, everything about it. And so when we start to look at young people who are on the front lines of receiving education in the traditional sense, moving them to being co-creators and being able to be stakeholders in it, I think is a powerful shift. And now we've taken those tools, and young people in 40 countries around the world are using them, and we've issued a challenge. And our young people are issuing challenges to other young people to go to peacefirst.org and to use those tools to solve injustices. And so, again, we want to be part of that disruption, and I think education and the way young people learn and the way they participate in it is one of the things we want to be a part of.
And you're really teaching them to be responsible, to own certain areas of education that they can actually change as well. Now, before I let you go, and before I introduce the next segment, I want to just look at a few quick numbers, because we did open up this conversation to you guys out there on Twitter. If you're not following us, I hope you are right now. So the question that we asked everybody was which brand does it best when it comes to profit and purpose? We gave them 4 different brands, and you guys had voted. The 4 brands were Lyft, Citibank, Zappos, and Starbucks. Lyft was voted for by 50%, Starbucks 40%, Zappos 10%, and Citibank 0%. Interesting numbers. So you all think out there that Starbucks and Lyft are really fulfilling that profit and purpose mission. Why do they think that?
Well, I think Lyft has played an interesting part just in contrast to the controversy around Uber. And I think because they've been able to essentially be what Uber's not in a lot of people's minds, I think there's a sort of, often a halo effect with that.
Right.
That's not to diminish the things that Lyft does, but I think sometimes even when you're doing things and taking a stand, when you have the ability to be compared to someone who's not, or when people see as not, and you become the space that they can go to when they really disagree philosophically and from a value standpoint with one, you become the other.
And then Starbucks.
I think Starbucks is, they play an interesting space in culture because they're in this kind of virtual digital world. They're the space where people can physically come together and spend time. And I think that they understand the role that they play. I think they've They've done a lot to bring in diverse people within the communities that they are located. So they hire local people. I think they've constantly pushed the limits in terms of how they can engage people in dialogue, how they can engage people in social change. They've been very vocal about the reinvestment of dollars and where those go, and how they engage creative communities in interesting ways in terms of infusing music and other things that can enrich and optimize people's experiences. So, I think they've earned their place in that in this survey.
All right, okay. Well, how can people find out more about you and get their hands on this book right in front of me?
Good is the New Cool. You can go wherever books are sold. You can find it there. And to find out more about the great work that young people around the world are doing to change the world for the better, go to peacefirst.org.
Excellent. Well, Bobby, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for helping me with the show, and I look forward to seeing more of you. You guys don't go anywhere, because I have one more segment that we glanced at earlier on in the show. You saw Gerard Adams, who was the founder of Elite Daily, a company that sold for $50 million. He told me about his new company, which was really giving a platform for the next wave of entrepreneurs. So I wanted to go and find out more. So take a glance at what we discovered out in Newark at Fownders. There are many ways in which we can predict the next round of disruptive startups. We can follow current trends, we can read scientific breakthroughs, we can even speak to experts. Monica, I'm really excited to talk to you more about Fownders and about the mission. Now, Fownders is here in Newark. Why choose to set up shop here?
Newark is near and dear to our hearts. The founder, Gerard Adams, is my brother, so our family has strong ties in Norris.
Fownders was created by millennial mentor Gerard Adams, who sold his company Elite Daily for $50 million.
We're a social enterprise, so we are both educating the current generation of next leaders, which is like millennials, primarily through our right here, this incubator that we built. We also are educating the future leaders of the world, which is the middle school students, high school students that are here in Newark that otherwise wouldn't have access.
His mission behind Fownders is to create an educational ecosystem that is both elite and progressive, and provides entrepreneurs with the most in-demand business and personal skills. So take a glance with me as we're on our way to Fownders to find out more. So here is my afterglance for this weekly recap, Disruption. It can be thought of in two phases. We have the original disruptors like Sir Richard Branson, who has succeeded because of his passion, authenticity, and strong belief in not always inventing industries, but instead reinventing them. He has always looked outside of the box. But has the box become smaller? How much more white space can we fill? Is the word disruption being thrown around too easily? And in truth, will the new disruptors just need to do a hell of a lot more to get the consumer's attention? With technology and today's advancements, has it just become too easy to innovate? It's simple to start a business now, but how do you stand out from the crowd? What separates a good idea from a good business? As we glanced at this week's companies, I discovered that education is key. How the younger generation learns plays a huge part into how they innovate. They can shape this world into a better place if we create a strong enough platform to help lift their ideas off the ground. Will AI really fuel disruption, and can education be changed to suit the next round of entrepreneurs? I believe that the way we teach is at the heart of how we continue to disrupt. What do you think? Reach out to me on Twitter at Lucy J. Norris and AAG Live to be part of the conversation. Until next time, I'm Lucy Norris. This is At a Glance, giving you smart ways to really live the good life.